Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Enhanced Pod. I've got an incredibly special guest this morning, joining me all the way from Stellenbosch, and I think I'm excited about having him. We've tried to get this for a while. I've planted the seed or the invite a long time ago, but we finally made it here. And if I introduce him as just the one thing that he maybe is currently, or I want to say almost most famously known for at the moment, I might do him an injustice. But let me try give it the full effect. So I think as physios, we often talk about bridging the gap between research and performance. And I'm trying to live that experience in my own clinical journey, but I can see and appreciate how hard it is to be at the top of international sports, and especially in international sports like rugby, where as South Africans, we are world champions. And then also on the top of the clinical side of things, where our guest holds a PhD. So he is a PhD physiotherapist. He's a World Cup winning physio. And he is currently the physio for the Springboks, as well as a medical lead for SARU, the organization. He is probably, he was probably the golden boy of Stellenbosch University. And as a Marty's alumni myself, I think what he's done makes me incredibly proud to be part of the university. Ladies and gentlemen, none other than Aneurin Robin. Thank you for your time.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for the awesome introduction and your time as well. I think it's also nice for you people to grow the profession and grow sports medicine. And I'm glad we could meet at last.
Aneurin, I want to say, I think these conversations are so important because if you think of 2026, I don't know if you even remember, but I first watched you give a lecture in my undergrad year, maybe in
Yeah,
2012 or 11, somewhere
yeah.
around there, and you gave an address to the Stellenbosch students.
You
And I
can
think at
remember,
that
yes.
point you were maybe doing your masters, or you had just done your masters. But from that point, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's so cool. He's in rugby, he's doing research, he's doing all these things. And then fast forward, I think a lot of physios, we would be watching you, uh, Renee previously as well. We see you with the Springboks on our TVs in our homes, in the places
Yeah.
where we watch rugby every weekend with our beloved team. So we feel like we're such a part of your journey. But the thing is, I don't think a lot of people get to hear your story or maybe get some insights and wisdom for you. So I'm so excited that you're going to be sharing that with us today, and that you've offered to share that with us. So I appreciate that so much, man.
No, thanks, Nick, man. Looking forward to our chat.
Okay, so let's dive right in. And I mentioned, okay, you did physio at Stellenbosch, you did a master's at Stellenbosch, but then you move into the exercise and sports science side of things,
Yeah.
and then you cap it all off with a PhD in physio. Talk us through your journey. I think there's two parallels: one, your clinical journey and your academic journey, and then also how did rugby kind of progress alongside that? Because that's very challenging for a lot of people to kind of balance.
Yeah. So, yeah, Nick, even to be a physio, only started in probably in grade 11. I played hockey and I played cricket. I taught my ACL and then got to know the physios, the doctors, the sport medicine. And I thought, yes, so physio is quite a interesting profession because you get to know people and work with them. And then I applied and I was fortunate enough to get into Stellenbosch. And I was physio, started in 2000, qualified in 2004. And then, I just enjoyed the journey. I got my first job at Rugby. That was my first, part time with the juniors. I worked at the Stellenbosch clinic for 4 years, and in the evenings I would go through to Wellington. That is how it all started. And then from Boland Rugby, got opportunity at Province with the junior teams, and then with the senior teams, the Stormers, and then onto the Springboks. I think, Nick, I was really fortunate to have a good career where with a natural progression. Not everybody gets opportunity, but everything started probably, to be honest, at club level. Saturdays you do work, evenings that you work, it all started from there.
And I want to ask you, for the physio listening that's working in high school rugby, club level rugby, maybe even junior provincial rugby. Do you think that pathway still is the same natural progression if someone has aspirations to get all the way to the Springboks?
Nick, I always say you must put yourself out there, because if you not start somewhere, you're not going to end at the Springboks or at the Proteas or at Netball South Africa. You in your journey, you meet administrators, you meet players, you meet coaches. So people you meet on a Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock might sit in the boardroom doing your interview in 10 years' time. And that probably happened to me doing club rugby. Um, And then I went to the boardroom. I thought, oh yes, so I know this person, Uh, and they know you. So I think you also learn your trade at grassroots levels. You get sharper. You may be the only physio, only bio, the only SNC, and then you start learning the skills and sharpen your skills and make plans. And I think that makes you prepare you for national level.
I think it's such an important thing that you highlight there, that there's still value in taking the time to learn your craft, and that's where you kind of form the connections along the way. I
Yeah.
want to just dive a little bit more on that, Aneurin, and sort of ask you how helpful has your postgraduate studies been in sort of adding on to that journey from grassroots all the way to the Springboks?
Yeah. So Nick, I took a time till I did my master's. So when I finished in 2004, start working, you're earning a salary, so life's changed a little bit. You get married, and then I got to a stage where I felt like, okay, you're comfortable, you know your stuff, but if you really want to push yourself, want to grow, you need to do something more, you know. So that is when I decided, let me go do a master's in exercise science at Stellenbosch. I did it part-time over 3 years. And I looked at the monitoring of fatigue in rugby players. So that was quite a cool study to do. That was in 2013. And then when I wanted to do my PhD, just to fast forward a little bit, I think it was in 2015, Nick. Then you're already 10 years in rugby. You think, okay, what's next? You come in, you strap, you do the rehab, you work, and you've been in also team environment. You can get, how can I say, I'm happy, but you're not learning. So I went to Stellenbosch University, went to my professor and said, is there something I can do? And she said, what about doing a PhD? I think when I finished in 2004, nobody thought I will probably do a PhD, to be honest. Just to get past was a struggle. Um, but then, the journey started with a PhD. You start reading for 2 years, you do a proposal. And I said, I want to do a PhD that's really practical. And then I decided, let's do a return to play study. So the journey started like in 2017, 2018, do a proposal, do the ethics application. Then it took another 2 years to get all the data, and then another year and a half to write it up. So it probably took me 6 years to get there. But it's worthwhile, Nick. It's, yes, maybe somebody won't pay me more on the medical aid, but you are a sharper clinician. You think differently. You're invited to other platforms where you as a physio can be, where I probably wouldn't have been, outside physio. And I think that is the beneficial of studies and tertiary education.
You highlighted some great points there, and I want to also just say, I think if people think of you in your current role or previous roles at the Stormers, etc., or at the Springboks at the moment, it's not just that glimpse of what we see on a Saturday when the Springboks are playing, or you at a World Cup or whatever. That's not your whole being. I think, in my mind, the PhD allows you to think big picture for a system, and kind of like in your
Yeah.
work now, where you are doing big picture, long-term planning for an organization like Saru, still with your physio or medical framework, but you don't have to be on the ground as you were maybe 10 years ago, the team
Yeah.
clinician. And I know that space exactly. I think a lot of clinicians will identify with that as well. You come in the morning, you're often putting out fires. This one's sick, this one's got to return. There's a million things on your list every day, and it can become a little bit overwhelming or monotonous maybe. But I
Yeah.
think you've highlighted a good point that maybe the PhD allows you to be thinking on this much bigger scale.
Yes. No, no, definitely. And you tell me, will I do it again? Yes, I will do it again. It takes time. It takes discipline. It learns a little bit of yourself. When I started the PhD, Nick, you always think you want the perfect environment. You want 2 hours a day, you want 4 hours a day. But life happens, eh? You've maybe got a family, you need somebody gets sick. Maybe I've just got a half an hour here, half an hour there. You must craft. Um, I can remember in 2021, we were on a Springbok tour, end of year tour, and we took the bus, and when we got on the way back, yes, so it took me an hour to get back to the hotel. I think shit, that's a lot of time. So the next day I took my laptop with. You do small you do small edits, you work on small tables, you make time somewhere, so I always try like get pockets of time, do what you need to do. On off days you don't have to go out and see everything, you can also sit at the pool and work. And I think everything adds up at the end of the day for me, and that is how the PhD came.
And I want to keep digging in this PhD sort of thread and kind of make a point here. For those who don't know, Aneurin's been involved in bringing a technological innovation called SpeedCourt into South Africa, and that's based at I think the Stellenbosch University.
The Tygerberg,
And I know
yeah,
that
the Tygerberg Medical
Tigerberg.
Campus.
And that was a big part of your PhD research, but it's now sort of starting to come out that this neurocognitive part of training and rehabilitation has maybe been overlooked a little bit, and it's showing that the sort of reaction time that you get when you're doing neurocognitive training is different from when we're doing drills, and more kind of in line with how our mechanism of injury works. And can you maybe just chat to us a little bit about your what you uncovered in the PhD and why you think SpeedCourt, or maybe the concept behind SpeedCourt, is so important to your work right now?
Yeah. So Nick, my main aim of my PhD studies was a return to play after severe knee injury. So I would like to see like what is a profile when players return to play. So I tested, I think, was 234 provincial players. I did baseline testing, like speed testing of 10 and 30 meters, counter movement jump, the normal hop test. I did a reactive agility test. And what I picked up, just to fast forward, what was the results? Three things that I picked up. The main thing was the speed over 10 meters, the guys were slower off the mark, but over 30 meters, they could caught up. But the big difference was the reaction time. People, like, to make a decision took a bit longer, so they see they need to do it, but the body and the mind takes a bit to react. And that is where the cognitive training comes about, And then the third thing was the psychological readiness. Although you cleared the player, some players didn't feel they are ready yet, So that was probably my three things that I picked up. And then one of my supervisors was from Germany. He works at Bundesliga football and in handball. And he introduced me to the SpeedCourt. He said, wow, we've got this SpeedCourt. It tests your agility. It tests your memory and decision making. Let's bring it to South Africa. And it probably took us like 5 years, Nick, to be honest, to get permission, to ask Global Speed, can we bring it here? And then they said, yes, let's make it happen. And last year, April, we launched it in Tygerberg. And I'm starting to using it a bit more.
Can you maybe just unpack the physiology a little bit about the reactiveness and
The SpeedCourt.
what's happening neurocognitively when you're using a tool like SpeedCourt, and maybe touch on, for clinicians that want to bring it into rehab, how could they do it in, I want to say, like an analog or a manual sort of way?
So can I just give you a little bit background of the SpeedCourt itself? So it's like a 6.5 inch by 6.5 how can I say, a mat system with pressure sensitive tiles, and that reacts to your movement and on what the TV shows, and that records like real time data. So you can see how quick that player reacts to a certain exercise, and then it gives you feedback. The difference with reactive agility and just normal change of direction or agility is like the player needs to make a decision. And I think in our rehab, we just don't say run left and right, go up and down. We need to bring in another stimulus. So you need to bring like 2 or 3 stimulus in while the athlete does it, like count backwards or say the months of the year, or anything that you can be creative of. And that is what the SpeedCourt does. It's like a math test. I tell you, there's like, what is 6 times 8? It's 48. But you need to see quickly where's 48. You run to 48. Once at 48, it gives you a new sum. What is 3 times 12? And then you go to 36. That is what the SpeedCourt does. So like the thinking, decision making. There's one more exercise I'd like to share with you. It's like a spelling game. You maybe know how to spell shoe or battery. Now you must remember, okay, it's battery, you run to B, then it reshuffles again. And go, okay, it's A. Okay, to A. Oh, it's now T. So that is what the SpeedCourt does. It actually gives you stimulus every time. And I think that is what we want in rehab. It's when a guy plays, doesn't matter if it's netball, football, rugby, it's an ever-changing environment. So before we integrate into play, we really need to stimulate the players more and not be a predictive rehab.
I think that's such an incredible device, and I think the way that you've explained it, even using examples, is fantastic. And for the clinician that wants to read a little bit more, point them in the right direction. What should they be looking up?
Yeah. So I think, Nick, I can share my details, and then they can contact me directly, because I think that is nice and easier. It is access at Tygerberg campus. I'm available, can show them around if they want to bring athletes or they want to see what it's about. I say the SpeedCourt gives you 3 things, Nick, and it gives you agility and reaction, the reaction time, but also decision making. And you can also do functional stuff. I had some tennis players there and some football players there. We actually bring a tennis racket, a ball, and you can actually make it quite functional with it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So especially if you're in the Western Cape, I think,
Cape
and
Town, yes.
this device, in Cape Town, connect with Aneurin. He's given you an open invite, so no excuses
Yes,
now.
please.
But I think
Anybody welcome.
from just where I'm standing, and sort of, I've been diving into this a little bit recently. I think this is kind of the next sort of avenue that we're gonna crack open in terms of long-term rehab. And I like that we are now recognizing the open-endedness of playing sport in a live sort of setting isn't really stimulated well in the rehab space, and thus creates the room for tools like SpeedCourt. So that's incredible, and thank you for sharing that with us, Aneurin. I want to go
Nick,
back
on that
to
point.
Sorry,
Nick, just on that point, I wanted to say, I think what we as clinicians can do to integrate our players a little bit earlier into team training, have a good relationship with your coach and your SNC coach. Because what I picked up, if you can actually put the players into certain training scenarios with the team and they pull them certain time and just tell the coaches and see, guys, this guy is not ready to play. Because that is what I picked up in my research. If you can give them exposure to training earlier, and then pull them back, they will actually integrate better when they fit to play.
Okay, that's a great tip as well. That's a great, and I'm gonna start using that from this afternoon.
Yeah.
And you're in for for people that want to know a little bit more about your Springbok journey, and I don't want to push this point too much because I don't know if you remember this, but you once gave me this piece of advice, especially about studying further, and you said you don't want to only be remembered as the Springbok Physio or something like that, and that kind of blew my mind because I think a lot of physios sitting where I'm sitting would be like, "Jeepers, I'd love to be known as a Springbok Physio," but you thought bigger picture than that. Um, Maybe just unpack that statement again for me and for everyone else, because I think everybody kind of wants you put you into that bracket, rightly or wrongly so.
Yes. Nick, firstly, to be a Springbok physio or the national physio for the Proteas or the netball or Bafana, it's fantastic and it's a huge honor. And we all hope for it. And, and I'm very fortunate to be here and blessed to be here. But at the end of the day, what I mean with that statement is like, it can't define your life. It can't be Aneurin is a Springbok physio. Aneurin's still a person, a husband, a father, a son, and I think it's fantastic, but don't say you must be remembered as the Springbok physio or the Proteas physio. I think life is much more. Um, it's about people and the connection, and that is what I want to be remembered about. Don't say I was a Springbok physio. Say rather, he had time for me. We connected. That is what life is probably about. It's a very short time in our career. Uh, it can be 4 years, it can be 8 years, it can be 3 years. Tomorrow, I'm not a Springbok physio, but I'm still a person, and I think that is where I think we mustn't forget. Um, don't say you're this national figure. Uh, you're not. Re- Enjoy it. Be grateful for it. But life is a little bit more than that.
I think that's such an important thing for people. And I mean, I'm talking for myself here as well to hear Anya and that. And I think you maybe learn this along your physio journey, but you're more than just the title. And it's tough. Sometimes we live in this LinkedIn world where
Mm.
everyone's got a role and everything looks cool. But I think sometimes that sort of putting people into boxes would make you feel like I'm less of a physio or I make less of an impact because I work with high school rugby players compared to you that's a Springbok. But if
Mm.
we bring it down to our profession, it's about making a difference for the person, whether it's Sia Kolisi's knee and preparing for
Yeah,
World Cup, or it's the 17-year-old boy trying to get back for high school. I know the context is different, but as physios, it's important. The
100%.
same skills apply. I wouldn't think that you would treat that 17-year-old boy any differently to the way that you treat Sia in terms of the thoroughness, the care, the connection, the way you kind of go
No,
about your physio
and
things.
you 100% right, Nick. If I look back at their career, in 2007, 2008, you worked at the Western Province Rugby Institute. We worked with guys like Frans Malherbe and Sia and Eben. You stepped Damien when he was at school. You never knew 10, 15 years back you're going to work with him. And I think you always must be present, always be prepared. You give everything because you never know. I would say you never know who you'll get along the way or who's actually looking at what you're doing, and that can open another door for you or just build that relationship.
And you've segued us so nicely into this next piece, and I want to, from a career kind of planning point of view, I'm about to touch 40 myself here, so I'm kind of grasping the fact that your career is long, and I'm starting to have these experiences where I maybe worked with. I had a patient that I saw him in grade 5 for physio, and then we ended up in the same SA20 team, and you kind of see that it's a journey, it's connections, it's important to treat him and give your best at that point in your career because you never know where it's going to go. But I did the maths, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think you spent more than a decade working inside Saru before you became the Springbok
Yes.
physio. And I think a lot of people don't realize how long that journey is, or how they need to be patient, or how they need to kind of don't think too far ahead, also just do the best right now. What advice can you give to clinicians that have big aspirations, but also kind of need to stay present, be patient, enjoy the journey?
Yeah. No, it's as you say, we don't we don't start at the top of Everest, eh? You need to do the prayer, you need to do the training, you need to pack your bag, you know. I say, Nick, for me, what I also tell people, like, come always prepared, wherever environment it is. You know, if you prepared, that's good. Come always good energy. That will take you a long way. You know, I can remember getting me in the SA rugby system. One of those doctors said, "Yes, so Aneurin, we need another physio. Would you like to come help?" That is how I got in. You know, I literally came, worked, do your thing, you know, and then you're in a system. You know, you can be from a club system. People see you working, you get to know people, you know. So that is what I would say to people. Just put yourself out there, be prepared, bring good energy. I think then your journey will go. You know, some people will make it in certain time. And the question is, if you still have that dream, realistically, Nick, there's only what, 4 or 5 national teams. If you look at the Bafanas and the Springboks and the netball and the cricket, we might not everybody can be there, you know, but you can be the best physio or the SNC or the best doctor where you are, you know, and maybe you will get there, you know, and if you don't, you will still make a difference in that person's and people's lives that you will touch on that journey there.
I think that's a good way to reframe it. Instead of just thinking of the big ambition, the way that you get there is doing your best every day. If you get there doing that, great. But if you don't, you've still made an incredible impact along the way, and you've maybe challenged yourself and you've grown, and it's a win either way. I think it just takes a bit of reframing for a lot of clinicians.
Yeah, because Nick, it's like you never know where this job will take you. You know, you might start at a team somewhere, and that will just springboard somewhere else. You know, just be present, do your best every day. You know.
And I mean, you've had such an incredible journey. And I was talking to you before we started about you are a Stellenbosch local. You've gone full circle, traveled the world with the Springboks and traveled all over with the Stormers as well. And you're now in Stellenbosch again in your current role at Saru and with the Boks. But I wanna say through that time, we obviously speaking about all the highlights and we're giving the highlights of your journey so far. Can you maybe highlight some of the challenges? Because, like you say, more than the physio part, you're a husband, you're a father, you're a man, a professional, all those things. I'm sure it hasn't been all smooth sailing, and I think maybe highlighting some of the challenges is also important for people to see.
Yeah. So, Nick, I think firstly, looking at the profession, um, when you get into environment, don't think every show will be perfect. You know, I think something with traveling, you still need to pack your bags. You will still put stuff on the truck. You know, and I'm not talking about just Springboks. I work also with other teams. You know, we work out of a small room, but you must make it work. You know, so I think there will be situations where you come as a physio, where it's not perfect, but you must make way what you can. You know, at the end of the day, you must still be the physio there for the team. Um, and I always say the players, management, and everything, they look at you and they get a lot of time the energy of you. So if you get to a hotel or a training facility and it's not as ideal as it should be, you know, try to make it work and still do your your core job.
And I wanna just say, just on the traveling, you mentioned once that I think it was in the last World Cup year, you spent I want to say it was like more than half the year at the time that we spoke
Yeah.
on the road and out of your home. Can you give people an idea of like what the actual commitment is like, just in terms of days away?
Yeah. So even last year, Nick, I was 22 weeks away from home, and that was just in the second half of the year. So that is like you can make the maths. And I think in World Cup year, you probably 26, 27 weeks away from home. The nice thing what we have is our year's quite planned ahead. Um, so we as a family sit down and see where is we're going to be a long way. So we try to bring the family over, even if it's just for a weekend. Uh, that helps. And then for me as a professional, what I also try to do is if I'm alone, you need time for yourself. So sometimes on our off day, to be honest, I'll stay in my room, go late breakfast, because we work with a lot of people every day and you also need to look after yourself, So I say, try to find a routine for you as well. We are there to serve the people and the players and the management, but you need to look after yourself. If it means to go for a walk, a run, a gym session, um, I, I try to take me out of the environment at least for half a day somewhere. And you also can be refreshed. I think that you mustn't be forget. You don't have to go every day with a management member or a player somewhere. You can tell them, okay, today I'm going to walk alone, and I like to do that. So
I think that's an important thing to highlight because you might not realize if you travel, but all of a sudden, the minute you're away from home and you're in the team environment, you're training on Sundays, you're training on the weekends, public holidays don't exist. I don't know if you
yeah,
ever had this feeling, but you sometimes lose track of what day it might be because every day it's a
yes,
training day, it's a not training day, it's match day -1. You start to label the days of
100%.
the week differently. And I think it's so important to take time out to unplug or to kind of I think something that I've learned through doing more traveling over my journey is that yes, you need to kind of take time to unplug, but also you kind of need to get in a rhythm of how you do
Mm,
things when you're on tour. I usually I need to make time for myself, so I train first thing in the morning, or I have breakfast at this
mm.
time. I do X, Y, and Z before I start consulting because the days are long for physios,
No,
especially when you're on the road.
yeah. We first up and you need to get ready for treatments or checkups and strapping, and then when the coaches go rest after training, we must go still work. So, so I always say you plan your week. I actually try to plan my day the day before, just to pick everything ready. Because as you say, we play Saturday, Sunday, you travel on the bus, on a plane, get to the hotel, pack out again, and you need to see players again. So somewhere in the week, please make time for you.
And I wanna dive into a little bit of maybe starting to kind of bring this full circle again, and maybe just speak about I think a lot of people would want to know from you. What is your role look like currently in a day-to-day sort of basis? What does it look like when you're on tour, and then what does match day look like? I think for me sometimes our as physios our most chill day might be match day, and all the work that we end up doing is in the build up and that sort of phase. But what does it look like in your setting at Saru and with the box?
Yeah. So with the Springboks, it probably is congested the second half of the year. So we probably start the first week of June usually. So that is like full on the Springboks. I'll just giving you a quick micro plan, Nick. The first of the half of the year, we really check-ins with the franchises because remember all the players have their franchises. Some players are playing overseas, so it just means weekly check-ins with the physios there. And if anything happens, they always report brought to us. So we try to keep tab on that. Uh, I'm also putting very hands-on at the moment with the junior Springboks when they're in camp. Just because of the first half of the year, I don't have a Springbok commitment. So I try to be with the training, see the players, staff, they have the medical team. So that is where my focus are for the first half of the year, and then go to the box. Match days are always interesting and nice, and I think we live for it. Hey? uh, that I probably double, triple check a lot of the stuff to be honest. When you go into the morning, you wake up, you have your quiet time, but then I think, okay, double check the strapping list. Did I set it out? Is everybody on? Is my bag ready? Go to the tables, everything out, so I'm a little bit maybe overboard a little, but I try to make sure when we start, everything is ready. So say for 5 o'clock game, we really start 5 hours before. So at 12 o'clock, we'll get together, have a quick check-in with all the players, with the SNC and the performance coach, have a mobility session. The coaches will quickly chat. And then 3 hours before we'll start the strapping. And then we do a match day, the normal match day routine, a normal match, a post-match, medicals again, get to the hotel. The guys usually do the recovery at the stadium. So we do a second round of medical checks at the hotel. And then we let them to go sleep, because although it's tough to go sleep after a match and all the adrenaline and everything, we try to get the guys as soon as possible to get the recovery going for the next day.
I think that's a cool little insight. I don't know if you've been seeing, but there's a lot more social media and behind the scenes into what physios are doing internationally. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's been the documentaries about the box and stuff, but I think it's so cool for a lot of us to kind of see or hear what you guys do behind the scenes there. And
Yeah, a
I
match day
wanted
is
to,
long.
I
If you
wanted,
think,
yeah, sorry, finish,
no, I
please.
say it's a match. I think a match day takes long. If you think you start 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, you might only finish at 12 at night. So I think that is physios must be prepared to work at that hours.
Aneurin, I wanna ask you some sort of advice questions to finish off. If there is a, I want to say 20 something physio student that's at Stellenbosch listening to you, what advice would you give them? Not about, I don't want to say just sports physio, but sort of lessons in a career. What advice would you give to a physio student at Stellenbosch right now?
Nick, I think for me the most important is you must. I, I know I said it in the podcast earlier. You as a physio must bring good energy to a team, because if you want to do team sports, bring good energy, be prepared. That is for me always the key. Work hard. I know everybody says it, but you can't underline it more. So I would say if you can do that, and you never know where your journey is going to take, Nick. There- There's sometimes where people will say, "Must I move on? Must I move on? Why must I move on?" I think you as an individual must decide which direction you want to go in physio. If the environment doesn't change, you need to move on. If you get to do a plateau and you're not learning and you're not excited anymore, you're not giving yourself anymore, move on. Because remember, people feed off you. And I think that is what we've got, a people connection. Everybody can do assessments, everybody can write the rehab plans, but can you build that relationship and the trust and the connection with your players and your management? That is my key.
It's something that I find it crazy because I don't know if I don't know if all the guests listen to the other guests. Probably not, but it's Aneurin. It's something that every guest has said. We've had Cizwe from the Proteas, Naleen from the Proteas women,
Mm,
yourself, Nida. We've had guys from URC and all over, and everybody kind of says this point where you got to build relationships, you got to connect with people, you got to be a good human at your core,
mm,
and from there you build the skills and stuff on top of it. But yeah, it's a
yeah.
balance between the technical, and then it is a very personal profession, so it's worthwhile spending the time to work on yourself.
Yeah. And Nick, if you look at, you're a physiotherapist or a doctor or sports scientist, you're one cog in this big team, and I think that is important that you say, we all must work together. I always say, people say, so what is high performance? High performance is not the name. It's a people that create a high performance environment. If I can have a micro chat with you, Nick, about a player, that is high performance. It's not waiting for a meeting or waiting for a problem. It's like chat regularly, uh, plan, put yourself out there. That is what is high performance all about.
I think that it's something that people maybe try and that everybody wants, and it's this high performance thing is really a buzzword, but a lot of people don't know how to
Mm,
do it. I think if we go forward with that, high performance is the people that make high performance and the way that they behave, engage, and that kind of creates this culture. Just
100%.
one last thing, Aneurin, and like maybe you've touched on this culture environment piece. You said obviously very humbly, you've said your role is a small cog in a big wheel or system that's maybe the Springboks. Talk us about how important, or maybe just uncover what is it about the team culture in the Springboks in Saru. We're seeing a little bit of in the Proteas now as well. But what is that magic that's happening there that people can take and apply to their school or their club? And I'm saying from Physios, as a small cog, what can we bring? You've said the energy and those sort of things, but on a big picture, what's going on there? How are the coaches speaking? How are the players behaving? What's the administration doing?
You know, the nice thing for me about the Springbok environment is that I think we're 21 management league. We trust each other. There's no about, are you sure about this? You know, can we do this? You know, so yes, there will always be meetings and challenges and all that, but I can be the physio that I want to be and the person I want to be, and there's good trust, there's openness, you know, what the plan is, where we're going, what can you contribute, you know. And I think once you have an environment where you say, how can you contribute as a physio, that is nice, you know. And I think that is what we as a Springboks have, that we really have input in what we can bring, and then that, that's probably for me the most important, like yeah.
I think that's perfect. That's a great way to cap off that answer. And your final question. We touched on this a little bit, but you can repeat it if you want to. But let's say at the end of your career, not your current role, end of your career, if we said we remembered Aneurin Robin for X, what would that be? What would the legacy or the impression that you want to leave at the end of your career?
Yeah, so you're giving a tough in question, I think. I always go back, Nick. Uh, Nick, it's not a cliche. It is about, was he a good person to me? You know, did he have time for me? You know, I think that is for me important. If you give people your time, you will go very far in life, and that is um what I for me is important. You know, I always say, my dad always said, if you can work hard, stay humble, be kind to people. Those are three things I try to go my life about, you know. And I think that is for me how I would like to be remembered. You know, as I say, another physio will come. They will also strap an ankle. They will also give a hamstring rehab program. I might be not the best doing it, but they'll remember for other things that you did to them and the
I think
time you spent together.
that's such a beautiful way to end it, Anya. And I couldn't have asked for better wisdom, better insight. And I just want to say thank you so much for
No,
sharing that
thank
with
you,
us
man.
and for the time as well, Anya. I really do appreciate it. Good luck for
No,
this for the
thank you.
big second half of the year.
Yes, it all starts, Nick. Pretty soon we've got a lineman camp next week. We've got a big group of 49 players coming in, so it will be good just to see everybody, and the energy will be high again, and get the plans for the year. And I just want to say thank you to you as well. You know, as I started the conversation, Nick, you and the people doing this, you know, that is how our profession and our spirit medicine will go forward, and performance. You know, otherwise, if everybody just don't care, um, we won't grow. So yeah, thank you to you as well, mate. Appreciate it, because now it takes time.
Absolute pleasure. I think next time I'm in Cape Town, I'll do my best
Yes,
to
please.
come see if I can and maybe try out the speed
The
court. But
speed court.
I know
Uh,
I I had this line that if sports physio in South Africa had if it was a school, you you could be our head boy. If we were a political party, you would be the president. I think you're such a great ambassador for
Thank you,
physio,
man.
for the organizations that you represent. But I think most importantly, and what a lot of our guests have said, your values as a person. And I think I want to highlight that you don't need to wait until you're the Springbok Physio to give people your time, to be humbled, to serve and connect with people. So thank you for
Yeah.
highlighting such important
Thank you,
stuff for
Nick,
us.
man.
And I appreciate it.